Day 285 of the Ukrainian War Map, also known as Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Juzzy here, and today is another quick update as I take a simplified and down-to-earth approach to some of the most important happenings on the ground in Ukraine. And as always, I'll start off with those Russian military losses, so as of the 5th of December here today. So in the last 24-hour reporting period, there has been an additional 540 Russian military personnel losses, so currently sitting at the 91,690. Then we'll take a look at the hardware losses, so armoured combat vehicles 8, bit above average at the moment, tanks 2, artillery 6, and there is one chopper and one aircraft, although it doesn't yet display there, but I'll get into that in just a moment. So I'll start out back onto the map, and as we sometimes do, I'm again starting out outside of the Ukrainian map itself, across to Russia, where the Engels 2 military airbase in Russia, the place that has been hosting strategic Russian military aircraft over the past week for an upcoming strike on Ukraine, has been subject to a number of explosions overnight. So a military airfield is clearly a concerning location for the Russian forces to be having problems with right now. So this could be due to a Ukrainian special ops team or Ukrainian partisans, anti-war Russian protesters. But what Russian or Russian media news outlet channels have been saying is that it's been from 1 or 2 Ukrainian attack drones. And if this is true, this would be quite the game changer, as this would change the strategic calculus quite considerably. Purely due to the fact that Engels Air Base is some 400 miles or 600 kilometers from Ukraine, as you can see there. So for Ukraine to, let's say, secretly have that sort of range with a missile or a drone and have it undetected in Russian airspace for that whole range, it is pretty incredible. And then also a fuel truck at the airfield at Ryazan, so a little bit more north there, maybe 500 miles due east from Ukraine, has had a fuel truck at the airfield explode in the last 24 hours as well. So all around, not a good look for Russia today. Then we'll move back to the map and we'll move across to the Kharkiv Blast. So the Russian army shelled Shevchenkova with S-300 missiles in the last day, so a big old patch of grass or open land hit right there. Of course, the S-300 missiles have since been retrofitted for land-based targets and are primarily otherwise really used for air defense. As a result, they have largely been unsuccessfully hitting their supposed targets. In fact, Russia's currently sitting on less than a 3% accuracy for hitting strategic military targets during this war. Then we'll move across on the map to the Donbass, or the north of the Donbass, where battles continue to rage, particularly at the Ploshchanka settlement there. And although we can't see it yet on the map, the P66 highway, this one right here, is no longer Russian held, and it's getting pretty close to being completely contested, in fact, as of course the Ukrainian forces push forward into this region more and more. Then we'll move a little bit further down to the Backmode region. So Russian forces continue throwing everything they have at the surrounding Backmode area, and according to them, the Russian plan is to encircle Backmode by the end of this year. So really, we're only dealing with another 25 days or so. But the AFU, so the armed forces of Ukraine, still proclaim quite the confidence in this region and are very much expecting to continue to thwart Russian plans for Bakhmut. Oh, and speaking of Bakhmut, a Russian Su-24 was shot down near Bakhmut in the last day. This was actually the Su-24M variant, which is a little bit newer, which costs about 25 million US dollars a piece. But still, these losses cannot even be reduced to a single number like that, because purely because of the time that it takes to produce them, and also the time it costs to train pilots as well. And that also reminds me of how the Russian Air Force was calling up 60-year-old retired Soviet-era pilots much earlier in this war, as they were asking them, or basically ordering them to enlist as pilots for the war, because Russia was running low on trained pilots back then. And this was about June time this year. So things have not gotten better since then. And all of that, which in turn reminds me of Ukraine's commander-in-chief saying a few months back as well, something along the lines of, we finished up with the Russian professional army, now it's time to defeat the unprofessional one. And that line, my friends, is extremely t-shirt worthy. Then also in the east, similar news, so the Ukrainian forces shot down a Russian Ka-52 alligator attack helicopter on the eastern front line as well. And again, we're dealing with a highly contested airspace that Russia seems to just sort of fly into. It's a bit more complicated than that, but the loss of the aircraft, or the outcome, is still the same. They keep losing aircraft that fly a little bit too close to the sun, just like Icarus, so to speak. And we move across to the Danipro Petrovsk Oblast. So there were explosions reported in Kryvyi Rih. So that is somewhat close to the, well, what used to be the Kherson front line there. But here we go, there it is there. And then a little bit further down south of that, as reported by locals, again today, Mykolivka. So that settlement right there was hit by the Ukrainian army, which really remains in line with the AFU continuing to target Russian supply lines near the front. Oh, then also in this region, another hole found in the ground, made in the ground, after the Russian army was trying to shell an industrial zone in the city of Zaporizhia in the last day with those very same inaccurate S-300 missiles. Then we'll move across to the adjacent Kherson region, where the good news I'll start with today is that electricity has been restored to nearly 85% of households in the region now. Now, it is a very fluid situation. This will change, go up and down as time goes by, although Russia has shelled Kherson 5 times today alone. So we're talking about Kherson city in particular there. But it does very much look like now Ukraine is now able to restore power on the North Bank much faster than Russia can in fact target it. Of course, just before Russia fled this region on the North Bank and retreated about 4 weeks ago now, Russian forces then decided to sabotage all the electrical infrastructure, meaning that there was no electricity at all about 30 days ago. So it's come a long way. And then in this region, we also have some information about Ukrainian snipers performing some work over the Danipro River, right here as well in Kherson. And we also know that Ukrainian reconnaissance groups are already operating on the south bank of the river, but we don't always get an accurate picture until sometime later when their successes have been announced. But they are expected to be around this area here. I do know, again, it looks red, but I do expect some special force operations or the Ukrainian special forces hanging around what they call the Kinburn Spit Peninsula here, pushing forward into the main central southern Kherson area there. Then zooming out, we'll also see what's going on. So here's something. So Russia has reportedly now stocked up with an additional 24 caliber cruise missiles on their ships in the Black Sea, so their Black Sea fleet, most of which, or many of which, are in fact moored or stationed at Sevastopol. Now, this new missile stock fulfillment for the Russian fleet would be used in combination with other Russian ballistic missiles for an intended larger strike or barrage of missiles to be used on Ukraine in an attempt to basically just overwhelm Ukrainians' air defenses to hit power infrastructure once again. Although, do you remember about 8 weeks ago when Ukraine sent 9 unmanned kamikaze marine drones to hit the Russian Black Sea fleet, with 2 or 3 being somewhat successful, making some hits. Well, when all of that happened back then, I think it was about the 30th of September, Russia got so angry when they realized that this was happening and that their precious Black Sea fleet was so vulnerable that they demanded security guarantees from Ukraine, otherwise they'd fire more missiles at Ukraine. And I cannot tell you just how backwards that Russian logic is. Because it's basically Russia saying, hey, no fair, stop hitting our Black Sea fleet so that we can keep hitting you with it. Needless to say, Ukraine did not give Russia those security guarantees. And I actually have a quick bit of a theory here, that when Russia performs a new barrage of caliber cruise missiles from their Black Sea fleet, so strikes from the Black Sea again, Ukraine will near instantly strike back with their kamikaze marine drones to effectively teach Russia a lesson. If you hit us, we'll hit you. But we'll see what happens there in the upcoming days, weeks, or months. And a bit of a quicker video today, guys, but just a quick mobilization blunder here. So it's a bit of a different sort of Russian mobilization blunder. So in Kazan, a location within Russia, a girl was fined 30,000 Russian rubles for the poster that she had up there that said, "I love my dad," under an article about discrediting the army. So according to a Russian news media outlet, the girl went to a rally against mobilization with such a poster, and for this she was also detained for 2 days and threatened with violence. And I'm telling you, if Russia keeps treating their civilians or their citizens like this, it's only going to make things a lot harder for the Russian political establishment long term to maintain power. Then just a bit of a quick funny to round it all off for today, guys. So in this example, we have, it's just a bit of a screen or a still of a Russian news media television show. And this is how propaganda looks. So basically they played footage explaining of Russian Chechen fighters against the backdrop of the Backmode railway station. So really the top right photo there, which would be quite the military feat for Russia to have soldiers stationed right there. Hey, well, as it turns out, this is in fact footage of Chechen fighters fighting on the side of the Ukrainian armed forces by contrast. But you know, Russia will take any propaganda win that they can. So thanks for watching, guys. Please leave a comment, subscribe, hit that like button. Again, thanks for all of your support, and I do hope to see all of you guys there in the next one. Cheers.